write prepper fiction with a little bit of a hopeful ending and a hopeful message.
My name's AJ Stewart. I'm in the same boat she is. I literally just found out about the show and this whole community last week. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. I just published my first book last month. It's called Hey Brother, and it takes place in Cashiers, North Carolina. If anybody knows where that is, it's about an hour from here. Cashiers becomes one of the last few safe places to cross the mountains. The story takes place 4 years after the United States is wiped off the map. Cashiers is one of the few safe places left, and the National Guard, in the interest of reestablishing a central government, wants to take control of the area and protect it and keep it safe. But as everybody knows, things don't always turn out the way you plan them to, and things go south very quickly. So I'm very excited to be here with this incredible group of people, and it's just a great time.
My name is Jeff Motes. I'm an electrician and an electrical engineer by training and an author by accident. My first foray into prepper fiction was back in high school in 1977. I read a book by Pat Frank called Alaska Babylon. And that began my journey studying preparedness. In an effort to help family and friends prepare themselves for difficult times, I started writing a series of short stories on Facebook, trying to get them to think about what they might do. Well, I just kept writing. And so where I am now with a series called Once Upon an Apocalypse, and there's 3 books in that series. I believe there's 3 aspects to being prepared: spiritual, mental, and physical. And what I've tried to provide in this series of books is a hard-hitting, fast-moving story that presents various characters with different mindsets who encompass these aspects to various degrees. And while the stories are not religious in content, the main characters are Christian, and that Christian view influences how they react to the events unfolding around them and how they interact with each other. Now, I wrote the story a little different than probably most are written. I wrote it as a first-person perspective from each of the main characters in the book. I'm trying to give you their point of view of the events as they unfold around them. And I'm also trying to put you into the minds of these characters so you can understand what their mindsets are and how that affects their ability to react to things that are happening. It's a fast-moving story. It's got a little prepper stuff thrown into the storyline. But it's an interesting story. Check it out on Amazon, read the reviews. If it's of interest to you, check it out. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Akers, and I wrote the SHTF series. I'm on book 3 at the moment, and I look for something to procrastinate writing because writing is hard, so I opened up a Dirty Dozen. I can herd these cats here, and they keep me entertained. If anybody wants to check it out, it's on Facebook. DD12 is in the house. We're taking over your campground. We're taking over Waynesville.
Yeah, and then we'll leave this place, hopefully, in one piece. Yeah, we're not running, we're not ready today. My name is Boyd Craven. I started writing prepper fiction with The World Burns. I think right now I've got 20 titles out under my name. I've been writing since I was a kid, but I've only been publishing since like 2011. So I've got a few other pen names that I write under, but Boyd's the one that's prepper fiction. Yeah, you don't want to know the other names.
No, we're not.
No. But I kind of grew up, the household was kind of homesteading. We had animals, meat, rabbits, chickens. We'd grow our own food, and we'd always put away for hard times. And that was never different for us because we would have, the shop would lay people off every summer for 2 or 3 months, and we had to be able to get through it. So, it kind of was a way of life for me growing up. So starting to write, it was, I don't know, kind of second nature for me.
I'm Chad Rudolph. I write under C.A. Rudolph. I started writing post-apocalyptic dystopian fiction, I guess, about a year and a half ago. And, well, I started writing earlier. I was published in December 2016, my first book, What's Left of My World. I didn't know what was going to happen when I published it. As an independent author, nobody really does. And 30 days after it went on Amazon, it hit bestseller on post-apocalyptic and dystopian fiction. It was very surprising to me. And from there on, I just decided, okay, I'm just gonna keep on doing it. This is a surreal experience for me. I'm kind of like Ashley right now, because I've never had a face-to-face author event before. I've worked behind a computer, I've worked behind a telephone, I've never actually talked to my readers face-to-face before. And I want to thank everybody who's it's been a very warm welcome for me. I've had a great time the past couple of days. Can't wait to see most of you guys back tomorrow. If you show up, it'll be fantastic. I've really enjoyed signing books. I've never done that before either. It's been phenomenal. The other reason it's surreal for me is because there's at least two guys that are sitting here right now, namely Chris Weatherman and Franklin Horton, who were chief inspirations for me to even do this in the first place. So being a part of this team with them, and it's basically a dream that's just kind of come true. The one thing I do want to point out is that while a lot of us aren't what you would consider experts in the fields that we write in, we are expert storytellers. And one of the things I heard Franklin say one time was that he writes stories that make people think. And if it can make you think differently than what most people think on a regular routine day, then mission accomplished. So.
Yeah.
Hey folks, my name is Steve Bird, or Stephen Bird, if you was to have to type it in something. It's my third HLS. I'd do anything Jan and the folks at Carolina Renters do. I love those people, love this place. It's one of the best shows we do, and hands down, you guys are the best. But started writing, or published my first book in March of 2014. That was the last layover. I was an airline pilot at the time, and when you travel by airplane and you're subject to TSA's rules, you can't have the ultimate bug-out bag in the trunk if something was to go wrong. And I was generally always overnighting in New York or Chicago, or the worst case scenario, last place you want to be. So that first book was really just written as a hobby, and it was a projection of my own thoughts and my own plans and my own fears. And that kind of grew and evolved into, I'm writing number 11 now. Not all in the same series, but all in the same ideological plane. So it's been a wonderful journey, and a lot of people I've met along the way. I've met pretty much everybody in this room probably 2 or 3 times. There's a few that I haven't, but this whole time it feels like just old friends keep coming by the table, and I just love this event, love these folks, and all the people on stage too. I appreciate every single one of you that come by and say positive things to us and give us a little reinforcement and keep us going. So it's been a wonderful part of my life, and I greatly appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Walt.
We love Steve, don't we? Hello, my name is Doug Hogan. I write under the pen name L. Douglas Hogan. There's a very small group of people up here that knows what the L stands for. I'm not going to share with you. They might giggle, and I'm not. Yeah, she knows for sure. She'll make it live on Facebook at some point. I'm not from here. I'm from Illinois. I'm not necessarily proud of that.
The ass is silent.
Anybody that says Illinois, you know they're not from Illinois. I'm just throwing that out there. I do plan on retiring in 5 years. I know I don't look like I'm 46 years old. I have a 24-year-old in my basement. He likes living at home. I have a 16-year-old that can't wait to leave. So they're very diverse individuals. I joined the Marines in 1992, and I served from 92 to 96. Just by show of hands, how many of you know G. Michael Hoff or have read something G. Michael Hoff or are familiar with him as an author? Okay, so G. Michael Hoff, I was searching for him. His name is Jeff, spelled G-E-O-F-F, and I had spent, when Facebook was first developed, I made a habit of trying to locate every person I ever served in the Marines with, and that was hard when you punch in J-E-F-F. looking for Jeff. I could never find him. Well, one day I'm talking with another guy that I was in the Marines with, and he says, yeah, he's PMing me on Facebook. He says, it's Geoff, Hoff. Yeah, he's a pretty cool sergeant. So I'm like, oh man, I slapped myself in the head, and I punched that in, looked for him, and said, he came up on Amazon as a best-selling author. So naturally, I emailed him, and he emailed me back, and from that, we just started communicating. For about a year and a half, we just kind of talked to each other. So it's now 2015. He says, you really need, because I've been writing books for a long time. He says, not books, but just writing, and I really wanted to be a published author. I just couldn't afford it. He says, you really need to write a book. And I said, I don't know, what to write about. He says, well, give it some thought, think about it. And he said, I'll walk you through the process. He says, it's not as difficult as you think. It's not going to cost as much as you think. So I did that, and he kind of walked me through the process of my first book, Oath Takers. Show of hands again, how many people in here are veterans? Thank you. I honor you. Thank you for your service. I don't care if it's in the Navy.
Go Navy!
I was in the Marines. We're brothers. We pick on each other. That's what we do. I love you if you're in the Navy or not. Coast Guard, same thing. So I wrote Oath Takers for you, and my version of an America without Oath Takers is quite grim. And so after I had published Oath Takers, it had become an Amazon bestseller. And he said, this is great, you really should consider writing fiction. And I said, I don't know if I could write fiction. He says, give it a try. I went to bed that night and I just stared at the ceiling for I don't know how long. Finally, this huge storyline started to kind of pile up in my head. And of course, it's all based on Oath Takers. Oath Takers to me was a very passionate book for me to write because, first of all, I had served in the Marines 4 years. I had 10 years of law enforcement experience, both in municipal and county as a sheriff's deputy. I had sworn an oath 3 times, twice for the police in different departments and once in the military. I'm very passionate about the Constitution and upholding constitutional laws. I just want to throw that out there and make that very, very clear. There's a difference between things that are between laws and constitutional laws. I was very passionate about that. So this story about the Tyrant series began to go in my head, and I began to put something together. And of course, it started in an area I'm familiar with, Southern Illinois, with some on a homestead with some individuals who are living in a farm just trying to survive under martial law. And that became this huge conglomerate of information that I had to pile up into 5 books. The Tyrant trilogy is the main storyline, books 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, there's some characters in there that needed their own book. So the fans wanted something more, so I gave them some more. I wrote Tori's Journey, which is a collection of 5 short stories, and then eventually I wrote Blood Core, which is Tori Cunningham, her own novel, and she lives in the aftermath of the Tyrant series. And the Tyrant series, just in a nutshell, is my vision of an America if oath takers, oath keepers don't do their job and don't uphold the Constitution, and then they don't honor their oath. It's a very grim picture, and it's very real, and there's very factual information if you read the Tyrant series, all the way from the executive orders that are in the back of the book. They're very real, and they've been written, and they're just sitting there waiting for some president to say this is a crisis, and this is the executive order that we need to utilize at this time. So that's my story, my book's in a nutshell. I'm going to pass this on to Frank Horton.
Thank you, sir. My name is Franklin Horton. I've been coming to HLS now for 3 years, just like Steve. I wrote a series called The Borrowed World. I wrote a series called Walker 9, and I have a new book out called Random Acts. A lot of the things that Steve said are true for me also, because when you're writing books, you're alone, you're hoping there's somebody out there who's interested in them. But 3 years ago, when Jan invited me to come here, it's like, these are my people. I found the people who are on the same mission that I'm on, and they're on the same journey that I'm on, and I have met some of the best real-world friends that I've ever made here at this event. And a lot of the people that I've met over the years, we've continued to talk throughout the year and go places together and hang out. And this has just been a life-changing thing for me. And I really extend the same thanks to Jan and Bill that Steve did, because we've been to a lot of preparedness events around the country, been to a lot of different places, meeting people, and this event is one of a kind. This is a very special thing. Just the whole atmosphere is amazing here, and I really appreciate being able to be a part of this, and I appreciate the welcome that you all extend to us, because that is nowhere else but here. And thank you.
He ain't no mystery. We know it. My name's Chris, and I'm an alcoholic. Wrong me. All right, wrong me. Well, I've been doing this since I don't remember when I started, 2011 or 12 or something like that. And I've been coming here for 5 or 6 years. I missed 1 or 2 because I was in other places. But when I got started, there wasn't a whole lot of people doing this, and we've got an awesome crowd of people up on stage, tonight that are now writing in this genre, and I think it's awesome because nobody can tell the only story that needs to be told, and Lord knows I can't write fast enough to keep you guys happy, so I'm glad they're picking up the slack.
Addling the scar.
No, a lot of these guys are my friends, and I communicate with them daily. I've met some new ones today, like meet Janie. I got that wrong, didn't I? AJ, thank you. I knew it was close. I talked to 1,000 people today. But no, the world of writing is interesting. It happened to me by accident. For those that know how I got started, I wrote my first story on an internet forum, just for my entertainment. It was just fun for me. And it took on a life of its own. And people were pushing me to publish it, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to publish this. I'm not a writer. No one's going to pay money for this stuff. But they were very persistent, and they pushed me to do it, and I can't be happier that they did what they did because it brought me to where I am today. And it's let me meet a lot of these folks up here and make friends with a lot of you guys out there. I communicate with people all over the country, all over the world on a daily basis. Who am I? No way.
You didn't introduce yourself.
I said my name was Chris and I'm an alcoholic. What else do you want? I also go by the name A American or Angry American, and he knows that.
I did, but they don't.
And I don't like to toot my own horn. It's not my way. I'd rather make fun of them.
Oh, I'm sorry you were serious. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But I wrote the first and second books I wrote completely online. People reading them as I wrote them and following along, making comments, and it was a lot of fun. And then we started publishing, and now I'm 9 books deep in the survivalist series with a total of 15 novels that are